Chomp, chomp. Gators tight end Kyle Pitts is the highest drafted tight end in the common draft era. Went 4th overall to the Atlanta Falcons. In just 8 games last season, he had 770 receiving yards, most in FBS among tight ends, and 12 receiving touchdowns, tied for the most in FBS among tight ends. Equally as impressive, he had 43 receptions and 0 zippy drops last season at Florida. Now looking to help Matt Ryan in Atlanta. All right, so welcome in CBS Sports draft analyst Ryan Wilson and former Louisiana running back and Sportsline expert Emory Hunt, who join us from Cleveland. Going to run down the NFC South, hand out grades for each team, starting with the Falcons. Ryan, how are you evaluating Atlanta's 2021 draft?
I gave him a B+, but it starts with Kyle Pitts there at number 4. They weren't moving off that pick. Arthur Blank is clearly happy rolling with Matt Ryan for another year, maybe 2. And if you're going to do that, Kyle Pitts seems like the obvious choice behind door number 1 there with that number 4 overall pick. He'll obviously team up with Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and this offense will be as explosive as ever. But then the question becomes, how do you fix the defense? Well, they did that with their next pick, and Richie Grant, the safety at UCF, can play center field, can play a little slot, will come downhill and run you over, and he's pretty good in coverage sideline to sideline. So that's a pick I like there as well. And finally, I'll mention Jalen Mayfield, who had some first-round buzz, but I think he would have been better served playing a little more football at the college level. He opted out. I understand that. He'll play right tackle. He can even kick inside to guard if you need him there. And there were some conversations that, a month or so ago that the Falcons might consider Penei Sewell at number 4, went with Pitts, and now they get their offensive lineman in round 3.
I like what Atlanta did. I gave them an A+. You look at what they do well. They went ahead and attacked playmakers. They got Kyle Pitts. Richard Grant was my number 1 combo safety that you can put in the alley. Have him a strong safety. I'm sorry, you can put him in the alley though because he's so versatile. He can play strong or free. Darren Hall is one of my favorite prospects to watch. You could never go wrong with the San Diego State Aztec defensive back. This guy can play corner, safety, any one of the corner spots in the secondary, plus both safety spots. So he helps them with his versatility. And Avery Williams out of Boise State. Yes, he's a dynamic returner. He's your day 1 starter at kickoff and punt returner, but don't underestimate his ability as a cornerback. He can mirror and match with his footwork, has great ball skills and instincts, and can also play deep in the deep third if you want him to be a safety. So he can do a lot of things. So I believe versatility was the name of the game for Atlanta, and they were able to accomplish that throughout the draft.
Carolina had the 8th pick. They took South Carolina corner J.C. Horn, making him the first defensive player selected this year. The first defensive player off the board has gone on to win Defensive Rookie of the Year each of the past 2 seasons. Nick Bosa in 2019, Chase Young in 2020, both out of Ohio State. Ryan, they also reunited LSU's Terrace Marshall with offensive coordinator Joe Brady. What did you think of the Panthers draft?
So, Akeem, at this point in the proceedings, it's sort of silly to even think about draft grades, if we're being honest. But we love to do it because people love this stuff. And if you're checking the boxes of what you need to do, you're going to generally get a pretty good grade. The Panthers checked every box and then went back and checked that box again. I gave him an A+. You mentioned J.C. Horn and Terrace Marshall. Those guys are going to be standouts. Terrace Marshall had medicals that saw him slip a little bit, but then they got Brady Christensen, the left tackle from BYU, who may even kick inside, but he protected our guy Zach Wilson, who went number 2 overall. And then I'll mention Davion Nixon. Emory and I were talking about this as the draft unfolded. He lasted until round 5. There was some day 1, day 2 buzz about him early in the process. He's a get-off guy, incredibly quick off the snap, needs to get better as a pass against the run, but really good as a pass rusher, and still pretty early in his career with plenty of room to get better.
Yeah, the only pick I didn't like was the long snapper because I felt as though they could have gone somewhere else with that pick, but every other selection I thought was an excellent pick. They got my number 1 H-back in Tommy Tremble. They got my number 1 corner in J.C. Horn. They got my top 3 tackle in Brady Christensen. So they got help around Sam Darnold. They got better on both sides of the ball. Chuba Hubbard is an explosive player in the mold of what we saw from Christian McCaffrey, but he's more like what we see out there in San Francisco where they rotate those fast guys on that outside zone. So now Sam Darnold goes to a situation where he really doesn't have an excuse because there's a ton of weapons on the perimeter, up front, in the backfield, and a defense that has gotten better as the season went on last year. Now adding some weapons with, like I said, Davion Nixon, a guy that I think is the number 1 3 tech in his draft. This was a really good draft for Carolina. They got an A+ in my book.
Hey, somebody's got to snap the football, okay? You got to give a little love to the long snappers. Somebody has to snap the football for the game to be played. Maybe not, but you got to have a long snapper. All right, the Saints also drafted a defense.
4th down.
Well, you could do that. That would be exciting. I saw that a lot in high school. That was fun. The Saints also drafted a defensive player with their first pick, taking defensive lineman Peyton Turner out of Houston, 28th overall. Overall, Ryan, what grade are you giving the Saints in this draft?
You know, Keem, I didn't love what they did. I gave them a C. I like Peyton Turner a lot, and I have no issue with him going to the bottom of round 1. I know our buddy Pete Prisco was concerned about the idea that they have Marcus Davenport there, they have Cam Jordan there, but you can never have enough edge rushers, even if you overdraft them slightly. I was starting to get concerned when Pete Werner went off the board in round 2. I like Pete Werner. I think he's a good situational player. I don't know if I would take him this high, especially with his teammate Baron Browning, who's slightly undersized compared to Werner, but certainly more athletic. Paulson Adebo, I think that's a solid pick. They need help in the secondary. He opted out this year, a really good player. But then we come back to Ian Book, where again I had questions. You have Jameis Winston. You have the other quarterback there,
Taysom Hill.
Taysom Hill, thank you. And I don't know where Ian Book fits when you don't have very many draft picks and you have a ton of needs. I'm sure Sean Payton will make it work, so maybe it doesn't matter at the end of the day. But right now, the knee-jerk reaction based on what we've seen over these 3 days, I gave him a C.
I tore my ACL with a knee-jerk reaction watching the Saints pass on a cornerback in favor of defensive end Peyton Turner. Now, Peyton Turner I like because he was my number 2 defensive end as a 4-3 defensive end. And I like Paulson Adebo because he can play the ball. He can pressure the ball. He can turn the ball over. I do like Kawan Baker, who is outstanding, underrated player that can do a lot of different things, and he's your day one gunner. He has explosive speed. He can play in the backfield. He can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. So I love that. And Ian Book is a really good player because they do need a QB2 behind quarterback Jameis Winston. What I don't like is Pete Werner and not addressing the secondary. They need someone to start opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. They did bring in Paulson Adebo, but you also could have doubled down on that position because there's no depth as well behind Adebo now and Marshawn Lattimore. So they still have a lot more work to do in the secondary. So that's why I gave them a B-.
All right, as for the reigning Super Bowl champions, they took edge rusher Joe Tryon out of Washington with the final pick of the first round. Then they took Florida quarterback Kyle Trask with the final pick of the second round. Ryan, what do you think of the Buccaneers draft here as they follow up a Super Bowl title?
Fun fact, Hakeem, in my 35th and final mock draft that came out Thursday morning, I had Joe Tryon going 32nd to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I got that right. It made me feel good after 35 weeks of doing these mock drafts. I gave him a B+. I love the Tryon pick, obviously. I had a mock draft going there in the mock draft. He opted out last year, but this dude is explosive off the edge, and he is just learning the position. And then they circle back and get Kyle Trask, a pick that I also like a lot. He's not going to play right away because Tom Brady's there, but if, God forbid, Tom Brady can't go for a week or two, Kyle Trask is a great fit in that BA offense with all those playmakers around him. We talk all the time about fit being the most important thing for these young quarterbacks. There's not much better fit than this, if we're being honest. So I love the idea of him going there. And finally, I'll mention Jalen Darden out of North Texas. This guy is a touchdown machine. He's slightly undersized, can play slot, can play outside. He can do anything you want him to do. You can question the competition, but he was always wide open. I love his game, and I think he's a great fit for Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, and the rest of these playmakers on that offense.
Yeah, I gave them a B+ as well, Ryan. I like Joe Tryon. He was my number 1 edge rusher. I also love the way they finished the draft from rounds 4 to 7. Jalen Darlin is a baller. KJ Britt is a thumper inside. When you watch his film, he mirrors the vision of the running back. He arrives in a bad mood. Chris Wilcox, a long, lengthy corner, athletic with some upside that fits their prototype of what they look for on a perimeter. So they did a good job on the back end. The one question I had was Kyle Trask. I know Coach came out and said, he kind of reminds me of Brad Johnson. That's not kind of a ringing endorsement that you want to take in the second round. So there's some better players that could have gone there. They could have bypassed quarterback altogether. I don't think Trask has the full upside that you would look for because he's not as mobile, he's not as dynamic throwing the football. So I think he kind of is what he is, and that's the type of player, in my opinion, you don't take in the second round.
Super Swamp Brothers reunited in the NFC South. Emory Hunt and Ryan Wilson handing out their grades for the NFC South, and they'll get to play each other a couple times a season. Kyle Pitts will be playing. Kyle Trask won't be. Barring injury, we hope that we don't want to have any injuries, of course. All right, so Tampa Bay, of course, the favorite to win the NFC South. It was New Orleans who won the division 1 year ago. Tampa Bay's win total set at 11.5 this season as they are the reigning Super Bowl champions.